It is lovely to see you. I wish this was more physical and personal, but we have to make do with what we have.
Yes, we live in these times.
The topic of our discussion today is governance, constitution, the role of the judiciary. I thought that it would be interesting to start with what ails the judiciary and then move on to how you see India's journey. The Constitution guarantees us justice. Is justice being delivered? So the first question that I had for you is, it is said that the law abhors delays. But यहाँ तो तारीख पे तारीख लगती है हमारे देश में. And we have over 42 million cases pending. Somehow I find that, and most people would agree, that chief justices, after they retire, they recognize that there is an issue with pendency. The former Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi said very succinctly that you want a $5 trillion economy, but you have a ramshackle judiciary. Given your vast experience across different levels of court as an officer of the court, what can be done? What is the one central problem? I know there are posts of judges pending in different levels, but the process itself ails from several afflictions. What's your take on it?
The least of the problems is that our procedural law needs a serious revamp. That's the least of our problem. The main problem in the working of our judicial system is that it doesn't work. If you file a suit today and it takes 10 years for it to be disposed, I don't think the system is working. That's where I start my critique of the Indian system.
If one way to... Sorry, please continue.
Yeah.
Please continue.
See, today, unfortunately, the newspaper headlines focus on orders passed by the court in public interest litigation, in high-profile cases, which have political implications, and comments made by the judges about the working of one government or the other or somebody. And that's exciting news, but that's not the justice delivery system. The justice delivery system on the criminal side is how soon are trials conducted and concluded. The justice delivery system on the civil side is how soon from the date of filing a statement, a plaint, to the date of judgment, how much time does it take? In Bombay High Court today, which is your premier commercial city, an interim application takes, if it is not ad interim and heard completely out of turn, an interim application could take years. I don't think, if you go into suits, unless a suit is expedited and taken out of turn, and there are suits taken out of turn because they have to be taken out of turn, it could take decades. Now, why are we here? It's two very simple things, Shekhar. A, we need more judges, and we need more talented and qualified judges, not just numbers. You need more judges of competence, and you are going to get more judges of competence when you revise the pay scale. See, India, my problem with India, whether we talk of the justice delivery system, whether we talk of our regulatory system, or whether you talk of investment in India, India is in a vice-like grip of the civil service. And they don't allow India to breathe. And they have throttled the justice delivery system because the civil service will never allow you to pay judges a salary which will attract the best talent, come away from the legal profession and join the bar and join the bench. That's your first problem. Your second problem is because of the civil services inadequacies of governance, your government is the single largest litigant. Single largest litigant. So on the one hand, you manufacture maximum litigation. On the other hand, you don't allow the judges, you don't create an ecosystem in which you could have sufficient judges. And there you are.
That's very true. I mean, we are probably the only country where an income tax department an officer can file against an order issued by the same department. And state governments are the biggest litigants in the court system.
The union government is not free from fault. I have seen the parliament comes out with what they call the settlement scheme, the Vivad Se Vishwas. And manner in which it is administered leaves so much to be desired. You have a nitpicking tax department which finds a lot of cases reason not to allow disputes to be settled.
Is there a process you would suggest that could sort of solve this? Abroad you have the out-of-court settlement things. In commercial establishments, you have two-way settlements. Is there a process in which you can reduce this?
You know the famous dispute between Tatas and Birlas involving billions over the telecom company? I got it settled in 2 phone calls, okay? Private companies settling disputes is easy. I would never, ever advise a client to agree to a settlement with the government because chap will file a PIL and then you have the court, some court will appoint a SIT, BIT, FIT, CIT, CAT, whatever. And the CBI comes in. Now you have another fantastic thing. Even before any offense can be established, the ED jumps in and says, oh, money laundering, send him to jail, no bail. Who will settle? I don't advise anybody to settle with the government. And which civil servant will want to settle in this ecosystem?
Yeah. I mean, there's a risk averseness, and then there is the other, which is vexatious, which is...
A very well-known Indian politician, God bless him, he's no more, I won't name him, but a great sense of humor said, when there was talk of his joining the cabinet, he says, I'm going to set up a decision-making committee in which I will appoint 1 member of the CBC, 1 member of the CBI, 1 member of Delhi Police, and tell them, after all of you clear, then I will find you.
That's true. Moving on to the more substantive constitutional issues. Almost every square kilometer of India is ruled by the states. We are, in that sense, a union of states. But every time there is a problem of governance, we are now 75 years old, the question comes up whether this is a central subject or is this a state subject. There are nearly 1 million teacher posts vacant. You ask the central government, they say it's a state subject. Every 5th post of police personnel is vacant. They said that it's a state subject. All the economic factors of productivity are locked in land and labor laws, which are state subject. As somebody who has appeared and who has argued on matters of constitution, on the issues of the schedule, do you think it's time we reviewed Schedule 7 and at least establish who is responsible for what?
See, ultimately, in any federal or quasi-federal system, be it Australia, be it Canada, you have a turf issue sometimes on subjects. You search their judgment, you will find one judgment in 2 years, one judgment in 3 years. That's how the systems come in conflict. Why should everything be resolved in a court of law? These are primarily matters of governance. Can we not have a group of people who will sit down and decide and say this goes to the state and this goes to the center, and that's the end of the matter? We have to accept decision making. See, today I work in the court here. The Supreme Court here would never dream of even looking in the direction of the kind of cases which our courts are dealing with, because there is governance here. How are matters settled? Let me give you one example. I'm digressing a little. Let me give you one example.
Yeah.
You know, our Vodafone thing is still going up and down and sideways. Till finally the law was retrospectively changed. We lost face, we lost time, we lost investment. And now we have taken away the retrospective law, all because of the obduracy and ego problem of the tax department. I've been in the battle and I'm telling you that's the reason. What happened in the UK? Vodafone did a similar structuring in Europe, Luxembourg. The HMRC said we are going to look behind this. They took it to the European Commission saying this conflicts with the European treaty. They said nothing of the sort. If it's a tax issue, you resolve it in your home country. They sat across the table, they settled it. The matter was raised in the House of Commons. Somebody asked the Chancellor, you settled with Vodafone? He said, yes. Next question, please. That was the end of the matter.
Yeah.
Can we do this in India? Can somebody say you've settled with the state? Yes. Next question, please. Till you reach that level of governance, India will always flounder. We have become decision averse, not risk averse. At one time you were risk averse, today you are decision averse. We have to take decisions outside the court of law. This biggest problem of governance is those who are to govern should govern, and those who are not to govern should keep the hands of governance. But everything ends up in a court because no state is willing to listen to the center. The center at times takes unreasonable positions with the states and so on and so forth. We need somebody to create a machinery where outside a court you talk sensibly and resolve it. And that's how most federations work, not the way we work.
Mr. Salve, I wanted to sort of take this a little further. There is a certain atmosphere in India about how the judiciary functions. You have been one of the vocal advocates that judgments can be criticized as long as motives are not attributed. But it's gone way beyond that. Now there is a resignation, a sense of fait accompli that this is going to happen in certain courts, and unless it comes to the Supreme Court, we won't get justice and stuff like that. But at a parallel level, there is another issue cropping up, which is more political. And I know that you don't shy away from political questions, so I'm going to ask you this. There's a lot of discussion again after 20 years after Justice Venkatachalaya committee reviewed the Constitution, that there is a need to review the Constitution. Now, this review is driven by some serious questions. Although we have a Special Marriages Act, there is a question about the Uniform Civil Code, whether we need a Uniform Civil Code. There are questions whether we need the Rajya Sabha in its current status or not, whether the membership of Rajya Sabha could be differently structured. Some people even want the color of the flag to be changed, and that could come up for review. Do you think in the 75th year of our independence, the Amrit Mahotsav, you see merit in the review of the Constitution in the aspects of whether the preamble should have the word secular in it, whether there is a need for a uniform civil code, These are now hot potato political issues. As somebody who reads the Constitution, who understands it, how do you view this?
I view this as a storm in a teacup. There are serious issues which are impediments in India trying to the status of a 5 trillion economy. There are serious issues which hinder growth in India. There are serious issues which allow India or slow India down in taking its place in the sun, as it were. Those are the issues which in our 75th year we should reflect over. I don't see the Uniform Civil Code as one of those issues. I don't see the color of the flag as one of those issues. I have always been critical of adding the word secular to the preamble for two reasons. The preamble was a historical statement, and there's no question of amending. The preamble says we, the people of India, gave to ourselves something. You can't go back and say we gave ourselves something else. And secondly, secular is a very controversial word. It has multiple connotations. Liberty, equality, and fraternity don't have multiple meanings. So, but those are again non-issues. I'll tell you what issues we should look at. And you'll be surprised to hear me say this. The relationship between the judiciary and the government, and I'm not talking of appointment only, the appointment of judges, the way in judges are appointed, and the areas in which judicial review should be allowed, including this whole construct of go to the Supreme Court, get a special investigation team appointed, have somebody oversee. We've had 3 fiascos. The Jain Hawala was a fiasco. The 2G was a fiasco. Every time you had these kind of things, you had fiascos. So what I feel is the construct of the manner of judicial review, the way it is done today. Today, the whole of Andhra, a part of Andhra and the whole of Goa mining is lying closed. And this is because of court orders. This is having very far-reaching repercussions on the Indian economy, and I have been critical of this from day one. So I feel these are the issues which are issues we need to address to help India's journey to the 5 trillion mark and beyond. These are the issues which are holding us back, not on whether our flag should have another color.
There's always the argument of the unelected taking decisions that the elected don't take, and then the elected go to the unelected to resolve issues that they would like to park on someone. That's very true of what you say.
I'm sorry, I want to say this. It is the government which was responsible for this shift. In 1991, the Attorney General for Narasimha Rao government told the Supreme Court that my forces are awaiting your command on what to do in Ayodhya, because the government did not want to take a decision whether or not to use force.
Exactly.
They wanted to hide behind the Supreme Court.
Yes.
When Justice Venkatacharya said, soldiers and policemen take orders from their superiors, not from Supreme Court judges. So this is where the politicians got into the habit of hiding behind the courts. Now today the courts have expanded their jurisdiction because of this paralysis in decision making. Today's government wants to take decisions, is taking decisions, is getting paralyzed in this construct. So I think this requires a serious look. Appointment of judges, we all fought for preventing the government appointing judges. But what we have today is a system which possibly is worse. And I make no bones about saying that. And I feel we need to have a serious conversation on how we resolve this. In no system in the world do judges appoint judges. So these are the things which are bothering us and hindering our journey. Not colors of the flag or whether you should have a uniform civil code or not have a uniform civil code or what dress you should wear somewhere or not wear somewhere. I mean, those are important issues, they get resolved. But if you're talking at the level of what should India be doing in its 75th anniversary, these are matters we should be addressing.
You know, we just had a series of elections, 5 states. And every time there are elections, the think tanks and the NGOs come up with this list of how many MLAs have how many criminal cases and and after Lok Sabha elections, the MPs come with how many criminal cases. There was a move to take these to a fast-track court. That hasn't gotten very far. Now there is another issue. Around every election, there are raids. We don't know whether those raids are justified, not justified, whether the guilty are being shielded or not shielded. But isn't there a way to create a process where at least there is due disclosure of these cases, where they stand, whether they are PMLA, ED, CBI, criminal cases? At least the voter, the citizen is entitled to that much. Can the courts create that kind of information network?
They can, and to some extent it is available. First, there are 2-3 things which you mentioned which are extremely important. In India, whenever we say we will set up special courts, you know what is changed? It's the little putty outside the courtroom which is changed. So we said we are setting up commercial courts, right? So what did we do? We changed the name of certain courts and called them commercial courts. And the congestion in those courts continues to be exactly the same. When we say we'll fast track courts, means those cases are heard out of turn. But even then, that poor judge has so much on his plate that gets shoved back. The third thing is, yes, it is true that a person who's falsely accused and being denied the right to contest elections has a right to a quick trial and acquittal. Does he have a right superior over a man who's been wrongly accused of murder and is sitting in jail? Does he have a right over a person who the ED has framed for PMLA offenses and who has not got bail? Because you don't get bail because the ED proves the case, you get bail if you prove you're innocent. A notion to which I find abhorrent to my understanding. But let's put that to one side. So, in a situation like this, I question this concept of having a special court which will hear out of turn cases against politicians. Why? Why should a politician not suffer the same fate which a businessman suffers because his case is not heard for 4 years and he's sitting in jail because the ED has locked him up?
That's very
That
true.
politician is trying to get an acquittal so that he can go and fight the election, right? Hold on, man. There is a man hurrying to go back to his wife and children and who's been wrongly accused of an offense. He needs a trial. So, I personally feel this is, there is no shortcut solution to this problem of delayed justice. Every time you try and give preference to one class of cases, you must realize it's at the cost of another. And there are competing equities, all of which are equally strong. A man in jail, deprived of the company of his family, has the same right as another man who is not allowed to fight an election.
These are long discussions and I wish there were more time for it. But in conclusion, I would like you to sort of look at India at 75. Where do you see India at 100? Do you think we have lived up to the constitutional guarantee of access to justice? Is access equal? Is it affordable?
When you ask me this question, my answer changes completely. And what we have been discussing so far is about the half-empty glass.
Yeah.
When you ask me about how far have we fulfilled our constitutional aspirations, look around us. We are the island of democracy.
True.
We have a fiercely free press, may at times a little over-free. We have a fiercely independent judiciary, again at times a little over-independent. And we have government after government changing by the ballot, not the bullet. A state as volatile as Punjab has thrown out established political parties and when they felt that there was possibility of a breath of fresh air. That shows democracy is alive and thriving in India. Have we fulfilled our constitutional aspiration? Yes, we have. But what do I see India at 100? I see India as a great country at 100 if, and only if, we do what I had said earlier once. We hit the reset button. We have to reset this atmosphere of distrust. We have to reset this atmosphere of over-governance by regulatory agencies. There has to be a greater friendship and a greater cohesion between those who create wealth and between those who regulate the creation of wealth. We have to inculcate in India a respect for those who create wealth, instead of condemning them as people who earn profit. Today, we are no longer a system anywhere in the world where individuals, promoter-driven companies are huge. I mean, there may be one or two or three, but a lot of companies have a lot of private equity funds which ultimately are reprocessed savings of the middle class and lower middle class. The whole construct has changed. We need to reset our mind and remove all these roadblocks. And I see a great future for India if we can do that.
On that positive note, Harish Salve, thank you for your time. And hopefully next time we'll meet in person and we'll have a physical interaction. Thank you very much.
I would love to.
Round of applause for Harish Salve, please.
ये है आइडियाज ऑफ इंडिया